There is a quiet shift that happens after 40, and most people never see it coming. Life appears stable on the surface, responsibilities are handled, careers are established, children are growing or already grown. And yet beneath that stability, something subtle begins to erode. The phone rings less often, invitations become rarer, conversations grow shorter and more transactional. What once felt like a web of daily connection slowly thins into occasional contact. You may not label it loneliness. You may call it maturity, independence, or simply being busy. But the nervous system does not interpret it that way. The human brain, shaped by thousands of years of tribal survival, reads reduced connection as threat. And when the brain senses threat, it begins to adapt in ways that can quietly increase vulnerability to addiction. After 40, social structures shift in ways that are deceptively ordinary. Children become independent and no longer require constant engagement. Careers demand more time and cognitive energy. Friendships require deliberate effort rather than proximity. Aging parents may need care, adding responsibility, but not necessarily emotional reciprocity. These transitions are not dramatic events. They are gradual reorganizations of daily life. Yet each shift can reduce spontaneous social reward. Shared laughter at the office becomes replaced by solitary remote work. Weekend gatherings become postponed because everyone is tired. Over time, the brain experiences fewer moments of organic dopamine release derived from meaningful human interaction. Dopamine is often misunderstood as the pleasure chemical, but it is more accurately the molecule of motivation and reward anticipation. It is released when we pursue connection, achieve goals, and experience belonging. When genuine social reward declines, dopamine signaling adapts. The baseline lowers. Activities that once felt fulfilling require more effort to generate the same emotional return. In this state, the brain becomes more susceptible to artificial rewards. Alcohol, prescription medications, online stimulation, and other substances or behaviors can provide a faster, more predictable dopamine surge than waiting for a friend to call or planning a gathering weeks in advance. Chronic isolation also activates the stress response system. Cortisol levels rise when the brain perceives social disconnection as danger. Elevated cortisol over time reshapes neural circuits, increasing anxiety and emotional discomfort. When stress pathways are persistently engaged, the relief provided by substances feels amplified. A drink at the end of the day does not simply relax the body, it temporarily quiets an overactive threat response. A prescription sedative does not merely induce sleep, it dampens a nervous system that has been subtly on alert. The relief reinforces repetition. Repetition builds habit. Habit, under the right conditions, can evolve into dependence. Modern digital life complicates this landscape. Social media platforms offer constant stimulation and the illusion of connection. You can scroll endlessly, view curated images of other lives, and experience microbursts of novelty. Yet passive consumption does not fully satisfy the brain's need for reciprocal engagement. In fact, digital comparison can heighten feelings of exclusion. Watching others gather, travel, or celebrate may deepen the sense of standing outside rather than inside community. The dopamine spikes from scrolling are brief and often followed by a trough, leaving the nervous system craving more stimulation while feeling less fulfilled. This is why isolation after 40 is not merely an emotional issue, it is a neurobiological condition. The brain adapts to reduced connection by recalibrating reward and stress systems. When artificial rewards enter that recalibrated system, they can gain disproportionate power. The danger is not immediate catastrophe, it is incremental drift. A nightly drink becomes 2. Occasional online gaming becomes hours lost in distraction. A prescription refill becomes non-negotiable. The shift is subtle, almost rationalized as deserved relief after years of responsibility. But beneath that rationalization, the brain is learning a new pattern, one where substances replace social belonging as the primary regulator of mood. What makes this transition even more dangerous is that it rarely announces itself as a crisis. There is no dramatic collapse, no obvious turning point, just a gradual narrowing of emotional life. The world becomes smaller, routines become tighter, and comfort zones become fortified. You tell yourself that you prefer quiet evenings, that you are too busy for gatherings, that solitude is strength. And yet, in the background, the brain is recalibrating around reduced social input. The absence of shared experience slowly changes the chemistry of motivation. Anticipation dulls. Curiosity weakens. Activities that once felt meaningful begin to feel obligatory. This is the silent architecture of vulnerability, and it is precisely here that the insights of Dr. Anna Lembke become deeply relevant. Her work on addiction emphasizes that the brain operates on a balance between pleasure and pain. Every spike of pleasure is followed by a compensatory dip, a subtle tilt toward discomfort that the brain must correct. When social interaction declines, the natural, moderate oscillations of pleasure and pain tied to human connection also decline. In their place, individuals may seek sharper, more immediate rewards to feel alive again. Alcohol, opioids, stimulants, digital stimulation, even compulsive work can provide that spike. But the higher the spike, the deeper the subsequent dip. Over time, the baseline shifts downward, meaning the individual feels less joy in ordinary life and more restlessness in its absence. This is the suspense most people do not anticipate. The substance does not initially create chaos, it creates relief. It fills the vacuum left by diminishing connection. It offers predictability in a world where relationships feel uncertain or effortful. One drink becomes the reliable companion at the end of a long day. A prescription medication becomes the dependable regulator of mood. An online platform becomes the consistent provider of novelty. The brain begins to associate these artificial rewards with safety and stability. Meanwhile, the effort required to initiate social contact feels heavier. The phone call seems awkward. The invitation feels unnecessary. The discomfort of vulnerability outweighs the potential reward. Then something subtle but critical happens. The artificial reward starts to displace the natural one. Instead of meeting a friend to decompress, you choose the easier option. Instead of attending a community event, you opt for isolation paired with stimulation. The brain, always adapting, strengthens the neural circuits that are used most often. Dopamine receptors downregulate in response to repeated high-intensity stimulation. Stress tolerance weakens. Emotional resilience declines. What once felt optional begins to feel essential. And still, from the outside, life appears functional. Bills are paid. Work continues. Responsibilities are met. The hidden shift remains internal. Research consistently links loneliness with increased rates of substance misuse, and the mechanism is not mystical. Social reward and dopamine regulation are intertwined. Human beings evolved to depend on one another for survival. Oxytocin, endogenous opioids, and dopamine are released during authentic social bonding, reinforcing attachment and cooperation. When that system is deprived, the brain does not simply accept the deficit. It searches for substitutes. Artificial rewards mimic certain neurochemical effects of connection, but lack the stabilizing feedback of mutual presence. They stimulate without sustaining. The modern environment amplifies this substitution effect. Digital platforms are engineered to capture attention, offering variable reward schedules that are particularly potent in shaping behavior. The endless scroll provides intermittent reinforcement, which neuroscience shows is highly addictive. Yet this stimulation does not satisfy the deeper neural circuitry associated with belonging and shared experience. The result is paradoxical. Increased connectivity through technology accompanied by increased subjective isolation. As this pattern solidifies, the risk of escalating substance reliance grows quietly in the background, waiting for a moment of heightened stress or loss to reveal how dependent the system has become. The most important realization is that addiction risk after 40 is not a moral failure, and it is not simply about willpower. It is about unmet neurological and social needs that have gone unexamined for too long. When coping gradually shifts towards substance reliance, there are early warning signs that often appear long before a formal diagnosis is ever considered. You may notice that you look forward to the substance more than to people. You may find yourself structuring your schedule around private rituals rather than shared experiences. You may feel mild irritation when something interrupts your access to that artificial reward. These signals are not proof of weakness. They are indicators that the brain has begun to substitute chemistry for connection. The suspense resolves not in catastrophe, but in awareness. The question is not whether isolation increases risk. The question is what you will do with that knowledge. Rebuilding meaningful social connection is not about dramatically expanding your social circle or becoming someone you are not. It begins with intentional, consistent exposure to authentic interaction. Evidence-based strategies show that structured community engagement, whether through volunteering, group exercise, faith communities, professional associations, or hobby-based gatherings, can recalibrate the brain's reward system over time. Repeated social contact restores dopamine sensitivity in a gradual, sustainable way. Face-to-face conversation, shared physical activity, and collaborative problem-solving activate neural pathways that artificial rewards cannot fully replicate. The process may initially feel effortful because the brain has adapted to faster stimulation. That discomfort is not a signal to retreat. It is a sign that recalibration is occurring. Equally important is reducing high-intensity artificial rewards long enough for the brain's baseline to stabilize. This may involve setting boundaries around alcohol consumption, reviewing prescription use with a qualified clinician, limiting passive digital scrolling, or intentionally scheduling screen-free time. The nervous system requires periods of relative deprivation to restore balance. When the spikes decrease, the troughs become shallower. Ordinary pleasures regain texture. Conversations feel more engaging. Silence becomes less threatening. The brain's equilibrium between pleasure and pain begins to level. There is also a cognitive dimension to this work. After 40, identity often becomes rigid. You may see yourself primarily as a provider, a professional, or a caregiver. Expanding identity to include learner, mentor, artist, athlete, or community member can reopen pathways to connection. Novelty combined with social engagement is particularly powerful in stimulating dopamine in healthy ways. Taking a class, joining a discussion group, or training for a physical challenge with others introduces shared struggle and shared achievement. These experiences build narrative meaning, which is protective against addiction because it integrates reward with purpose. Understanding the link between isolation and addiction allows you to address root drivers rather than focusing solely on the substance itself. When you strengthen social bonds, regulate digital exposure, and tolerate the temporary discomfort of change, you are not just reducing risk, you are restoring alignment with how the human brain was designed to function. Connection is not a luxury. It is a biological requirement. The hidden force increasing addiction risk after 40 is not age itself, but disconnection disguised as independence. When you recognize that pattern, you reclaim agency. The path forward is deliberate but achievable. Begin by scheduling one consistent social interaction each week. Protect it as you would any professional obligation. Evaluate your relationship with substances honestly and without shame. Seek guidance if needed from evidence-based professionals who understand the neurobiology of addiction. Most importantly, remember that your brain remains plastic throughout life. It can rewire toward health, resilience, and belonging. Isolation may be subtle, but so is recovery when practiced daily. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.